Welcome back to the Motivational Mic, the show where we dive into real stories of resilience, reinvention, and the power of purpose. Today's guest is someone whose passion and purpose started at an incredibly young age. Claire is the founder of Pediatric Cancer Heroes, a nonprofit dedicated to educating, advocating, and fundraising for pediatric cancer patients. She founded the organization when she was just 12 years old after learning about children battling cancer and realizing how overlooked pediatric cancer truly is. Instead of looking away, she took action. Claire has always been driven. She competed in lacrosse and rowing, graduated as valedictorian of her high school class, and earned academic distinction at the University of Arizona, where she's deeply involved in STEM and healthcare-related programs. With plans to attend medical school and to pursue a career in oncology, Claire is already making a meaningful impact. Through Pediatric Cancer Heroes, she works to raise awareness, support families, and fight for children who deserve not just hope, but a future. I'm excited and honored to welcome Claire to the show. Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name's Claire Johnson. I'm the founder of an organization called Pediatric Cancer Heroes, which is run primarily on social media with the intent to educate people about what childhood cancer is, advocate for people or for kids who are fighting cancer, and fundraise for children and families who are currently undergoing or have gone the extensive treatments involved in pediatric cancer care. I'm currently a senior at the University of Arizona and looking to go to medical school and eventually have a career in oncology.
Oh, that's awesome. So you
Thank you.
found this organization when you were just 12 years old.
Yeah.
So go back to that time. So what did you see or learn that really made you feel like you had to act?
Yeah. So I, like most kids in our generation, I think, had social media at a very young age. So I was exposed to a lot of things that, people in previous generations maybe weren't exposed to. And one of those things was on Instagram, I saw a story of a little girl who had neuroblastoma. Her name's Kylie Rowand. And I kind of became very interested in her story and I was following it along and I was talking to my parents. My parents were like, why are you looking at this? Like, this is sad. This is not what we want you to be looking at. And I was like, okay, okay. And I like still looked at it because, like any child, if you tell them to do not to do something, they're going to do it. So I just kept following along, and as I was following along with her story, more stories of more kids that had cancer kept popping up. And so I kind of took to my own social media to start talking about it. It was a very not well informed discussion that I was trying to have because I was, like you said, I was only 12. I did not have an extensive background in medicine or in science at all. But I started posting, like, hey, kids get cancer too. And basically, what ended up happening was my friends were like, Claire, this is sad. We don't want to hear this. So I made my own separate account, like simply for advocating for kids with cancer. And to tell you like how naive I was, I didn't even spell heroes right the first time. It was missing the E at the end. So I started PCH, corrected the name, and it just kind of grew from there.
That's awesome. I mean, being so young and already being dedicated to a cause, there are so many people that dedicate or try to dedicate themselves to something that they care about, but they're just unable to take that first step. What do you think gave you the courage to act really at such a young age?
Yeah, so like I said, Kylie had neuroblastoma. She was the first child that I ever encountered who had cancer. And if if I think about it, I was quadruple the age that she was at that time when I started following her. So she was so little, like still a baby going through a horrible, horrible disease. And I didn't really think about it too much. And I think that's what gave me the courage to just like start something because I was so much older than her, and I wasn't old at that point. But I knew that I had to do something. I knew that these kids don't necessarily have a voice. And so I had this thing that I was really passionate about, and I just started it. And I like to tell people it was kind of by accident. Like I said, my friends were annoyed, and I was like, okay, I'll just make my own thing. And it turned into something much, much bigger than that. But there's something that you're passionate about, you're doing yourself a disservice by not acting on it, because then 10 years from your where you're standing now, you're going to think, well, what would my life look like if I did that thing? What would my life look like if I took that step, if I, you know, started this dialogue with this person? And I don't really want to live like in a world of what ifs. So um yeah, I just kind of went out on a limb, and it turned into what it is now.
When you first started putting together everything with the social media, did your parents help you?
No. And actually, my dad didn't even know that I was the one running it
Wow.
um, for like a year. And I kept like showing him this stuff, and it kept popping up on his feed. And he's like, finally, like, wait, this is you? I was like, yeah, this is me. And I think that stemmed kind of from a childlike view of the world. I mean, when you're 12, you haven't seen much of anything in the grand scheme of things. So I was just telling people what was on my mind. And it has turned into a much bigger thing now with over 18,000 followers on Instagram. And this was pre like influencer era. I think we're in a very different era of social media than we were when I started PCH in 2016. So it was really just trial and error. Like, what do people respond well to? What tone can you use to get the message across but still be direct? And that kind of thing. A lot of algorithm changes have happened over the past like 9 years. So really just being able to adapt and go with the trends and go with, while still following the core values of what PCH is, and that is to educate, advocate, and fundraise, all the while like empowering these kids and these families and letting them know that they have a community.
You're a student. I mean, you have to balance academics, leadership, and advocacy with everything. So, what challenges do you face that people might not know while you're running Pediatric Cancer Heroes?
Yeah, so since being in college the past 4 years, it has gotten significantly harder to balance everything. When I was running this in high school, I was posting multiple times a day. I just had more time, even more structure, I would argue. So, being a student, I'm actively applying to medical school right now. So, I have that going on behind the scenes. I'm not, projecting that on PCH. People don't know that. Um, but it's a lot, like work and school and trying to be a good student while also trying to cater to the needs of hundreds of families that I'm in contact with at all times is a lot. But what keeps me grounded in all of that is thinking about the bigger picture. Yes, my life might be temporarily harder because I have like an exam coming up or I have applications due, something like that. But these families that I'm working with and these kids that I'm working with and sharing their stories, they're going through things that are 1,000 times harder than what I'm going through. And if they need that sense of community, I want to be there to provide it to them. And so, not to say that I put my own needs on the back burner, but I've learned that there is a balance. And if I can carve out time in my day to, post, to respond to messages, to work on certain initiatives that PCH is going to be rolling out soon, that's essential. And everything else can kind of mold around that.
Do you run it by yourself? Is it all
Yes.
you? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's really awesome. And also because you want to go into the medical field. I mean, that's
Yeah.
great to have.
And in like my work experience, I have a lot of clinical experience in adult oncology. I also have a lot of administrative experience, also in adult oncology. So that has been so beneficial for me in running this because I'm able to see the struggles that people might not know about that come with healthcare, like insurance and stuff like that, and how to, you know, properly approach certain subjects and certain like hard topics. That's just been like so fundamental over the past few years. Um, but yeah, I run it all by myself, and it's kind of it's always a work in progress.
Think of a time when you were working with a family or patient that really reinforces why you do what you do.
Yeah, I always think back to one little girl in particular. Her name's Ellie. She had brain cancer. She unfortunately passed away, and I have been in contact with her family since then. And she has an older sibling who has autism, and just they have a lot of family stuff going on. They have a very some tough things going on, and I never worked with Ellie because she had passed away before I started PCH, but I always followed her story. I always followed her mom. And I was able to send a package to Ellie's older sister. I think it was a couple summers ago now. And it was because her mom had posted that she needed to find headphones for this child. And I had a pair, and I was like, I don't use these. So, like, I'll just send them your way. And I did that, and it was just so impactful to see that I can still bring some joy, some help to these families, even after they've experienced such a huge loss in their lives. And that really just reinforces what PCH is all about. You know, I'm not there to only pay attention to you and your family and your child when they're actively going through cancer. Because I mean, sure, as you know, you're never really cured. There's always, like hurdles that you have to overcome after cancer treatment ends, or in some families' cases, after a child passes away, you still, they still deserve the attention, and they still deserve the, just the love that PCH can show them and that like individuals can show them. So I think it was really cool to be able to help that family and honor Ellie in doing something, almost a decade after she passed away.
So upsetting to think about all the people that have just got taken by pediatric cancer. I mean, it's severely underfunded, under talks about.
Yeah.
It's so what you're doing, it really is. It's needed.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was something that I learned more about when I started PCH, when I started the PCH Instagram account. I wasn't really privy to the fact that pediatric cancer only got, 4% at the time, 3.8% of the National Cancer Institute's budget. And once I found that out, it was like
Yeah.
all bets were off. I was just so mad. And again, I was so young and didn't really understand how like fiscal anything worked. But as I've, grown with PCH, and I've gotten more educated, and I've talked to more people, it's just astounding the gap in funding that exists and still exists, because this is a reality that people don't want to talk about. You don't want to talk about little kids dying of cancer. You don't want to talk about, teenagers who are stuck in a hospital for their graduation fighting cancer. And I think we just collectively need to overcome that barrier to conversation and just lay it out.
When you were 12, did you know that you wanted to be an oncologist?
Not necessarily. I'd always kind of gravitated towards the field of medicine. I love talking to people and caring for people. Just kind of always had that nurturing instinct. But once I started seeing these stories and understanding the kind of care that goes into like each child's case, then it was pretty solidified from there that I wanted to go into some sort of oncology, whether that ends up being peds or adult or something more specialized. I think it's it's one of those fields that every time I say like, "Oh yeah, I want to go into peds onc," people are like, "Oh, well, that's so sad." I'm like, "Yeah," and then they followed up with, "But somebody needs to do it." And I agree with that.
So you want to be a doctor?
Yeah, yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
So there are so many young viewers and listeners that are listening right now who feel passionate about something and they don't know where to start, just like you once were. What advice would you give them?
I think the first piece of advice that I would give is kind of cliche, but you just have to start. You have to be willing to fail. Um, like things aren't always going to go exactly how you envision them going. You might not get the same result, but like I said earlier, you don't want to live in a world of what ifs. You don't want to be 5 years down the line and being like, oh, like I really wish that I would have done that then, or like what would have happened if I started that then. And I think that's the biggest thing is you just have to start. Like I said before, I started PCH kind of by accident. It was merely a response to other people telling me, "Oh, they didn't want to see that." I think another big thing that I struggled with throughout the early parts of my founding of PCH is having people in your corner that understand your passion and understand what you want to do. Something that my parents always asked me was, well, what do you want to do with this? And I'm like, well, that's a very loaded question. Like I want to help people. I want to bring the compassion that you might not be feeling in a hospital to a family. And I didn't necessarily have the resources to do that at 12, 13, 14, 15. So having people in your corner that understand what you're doing and can help you get there is huge. Um, Thankfully now I have like a lot of friends that are in the business school and they help me with like account management and stuff like that I would have no idea how to do because I'm a science major. Um, but just having people that are willing to back you up in whatever you're pursuing is so, so essential. So, I guess to sum all of that up, my two pieces of advice would be just to start. As you have to start somewhere in everything that you do, whether that's studying for a math test or running 3 miles. You have to start somewhere. And the second piece would be to find people that understand your passion, and maybe even they don't understand it, but they're willing to help you and build a community from there.
I give you a lot of props. I mean, advocating is not an easy work. So how do you take care of yourself and avoid burnout while staying committed to your mission?
Yeah, I think that's tough, and I think everybody that does work with advocacy and or works within healthcare experiences this at some point. But like I said in the last question, like you have to have people in your corner. And I think that has been the best way for me to deal with heavy things. Like I just put out a post today on a little girl who has brain cancer. She's had brain cancer since 2020. Her time is coming to an end. That is not something that we should be used to. That's not something that I ever want to be desensitized to, but you see it so much within the realm of pediatric oncology and pediatric cancer. Um, and I think for me, it's just important to talk about it with people that know me personally, um, because you do need the validation. You do need, like, yeah, that's really sad. Like, I'm sorry. And these are kids that I, most of the time, have never met in person. I've only communicated with them via social media. And it's just tough. It's hard work. But at the end of the day, I just remind myself that I'm doing this to further the mission that I think everybody within the pediatric cancer space has, and that is to raise awareness and to ultimately make the lives of children who are fighting cancer who have fought cancer better. So it's heavy work, yes. It has caused me on numerous occasions to get super burnt out and just be like, I don't want to keep doing this because it's just like bad news after bad news after bad news. But I always come back to it because these kids have no voice in effect. And if I can be their voice, that's good enough for me.
It makes you realize that you can't ever get burnout from doing what you love.
Right, exactly. And, there are definitely, you can go down the PCH timeline on Instagram and see like there are some pretty profound gaps. And sometimes that's because I'm like taking my MCAT and I'm a little preoccupied. And other times that's because it, the community just got hit really, really hard. And sometimes you need to just step back and then, you can re-enter with kind of a lighter heart.
At Arizona, do you guys have anything that raises money for pediatric cancer or
Um, I'm not involved in anything that directly raises money for pediatric cancer, other than PCH, of course. And I shamelessly plug PCH in pretty much everything I do. I am involved in another club that doesn't raise money for cancer per se, but it's called Wildcat Miracle Network. We partner with one of the Children's Miracle Network hospitals here in Tucson, which is Tucson Medical Center for Children, and we raise funds throughout the year for anything that they need, whether that's like preemie diapers or like incubators, that kind of thing. They all of the money that we raise goes to the hospital, and they use that money to their discretion, which I think is super cool because you don't necessarily want to have a fundraising initiative where you're raising money for this one thing. You want the recipient to be able to use it however they need to in that moment.
I'm a senior, so I was looking at colleges. I applied to ASU.
Okay,
I
yeah,
was looking at going there, but I just committed to Penn State.
awesome. Yeah, I have a lot of friends actually, a lot of mutual friends that go to Penn State and
Oh
they
yeah.
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so up there they have Thon.
yeah, yeah.
So that's a big thing, which I'll probably end up joining.
Yeah, no, Thon is huge there. So Penn State's Thon is different from like dance marathon, but same like premise of
Concept.
what
Yeah.
we're all doing.
Yeah, just raising money,
Yeah.
advocating, getting the word out there.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, I mean, what's your long-term goal and vision for PCH, and how can listeners get involved to support your mission?
PCH will never die. I'm confident of that. What I really want to see in the next year, 2 years, with PCH is how much fundraising, how we can tap into fundraising. And so I'm rolling out a new initiative called the Hero Fund. This is like a year-long goal that I have. So by the end of 2026, I really want this fund to be active. And right now, I'm just aiming on getting capital for that so that I can cater to as many families as possible. And so, what the Hero Fund is, will be basically a collection of money that gets dispersed to different families that are exhibiting need. And I don't know what your journey with childhood cancer looks like, but a lot of kids and a lot of families struggle. They're, traveling back and forth long distances to go to major hospitals. They're staying in hotels. They have other children that they need to take care of. They need to get groceries. So just like covering basic expenses like that, and also helping to fund maybe more complex treatments that a child may need. So I really want to see PCH achieve more fundraising and just keep growing. I think the more that we grow, the more people will understand how not rare this is. I think that's a very big misconception is that childhood cancer is so rare, but in reality, it could be you, it could be your cousin, it could be your kid, it could be your grandkid, like tomorrow. So, anybody that wants to get involved or support PCH, think a good place to start is the Instagram, which is just at Pediatric Cancer Heroes. And then there's also a website, pediatriccancerheroes.org, that has all of the information about me, about the foundation, how to like ways to donate, merch campaigns, that kind of thing. I think it's a very simple call to action, but sharing posts and just like interacting with it pushes it out to more people, and then more people are their eyes are open to what pediatric cancer is and what these children are facing, and together I think that we can make a huge change.
It's so important to get involved in underfunded causes, especially childhood cancer. So
Yeah,
what you're doing is amazing, and keep doing it.
thanks.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Like I said, if you see stuff about childhood cancer, whether it's from Pediatric Cancer Heroes or not, I encourage anyone who's listening to look into it. Like, read about what pediatric cancer really is. Read the stories of these kids, share them. Like I said, we can all come together and make a much bigger impact than just one person. And I've seen that through PCH. I'm one person, but there's 18,000 people that follow me and what I'm saying. And the more that they interact with stuff, the more that they share stuff, the more people come into that community. And I think it's just super important to not turn away like everyone wants to. Yeah, I know it's a tough topic. I know it's sometimes photos can be very gruesome and posts can be very, very heartbreaking, but we need to resist the urge to turn away.
Before you go, just something I do usually at the end of every episode. What message would you give to everyone listening personally?
Childhood cancer is not rare, first and foremost. Second, I think, as the founder of something that didn't really have an end goal, I didn't really have something in mind when I thought of PCH. I just wanted to get the word out. That was it. You really just have to lean into that. Follow your instincts, and you can truly create something that makes lasting change.
This has truly been amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Never underestimate what can happen when you choose to care, and then choose to act. Claire's journey is a reminder that purpose doesn't wait for permission, experience, or the perfect moment. It starts when you see a need and decide not to look away. You don't have to change the whole world overnight. Real impact is built in small, intentional steps. A conversation, an idea, a decision to show up. When compassion turns into action, momentum follows. So if there's something pulling at you, something you feel called up to stand for, don't talk yourself out of it. Start where you are, use what you have, and trust that the consistent effort can grow into something far bigger than you ever imagined. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on the Motivational Mic. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Together, we can spread positivity and make a difference. Join me next time for more incredible stories and insights. Until then, stay motivated and keep pushing forward. Thank you for listening, and see you next time on the Motivational Mic.